Hello there, guys. This is Christy Lewis from Dostoevsky in Space, and today I'm going to be sharing my February, so febregency wrap-up, as well as some other things that I finished in February, and I will also be talking about my March TBR. Also, I need to let you guys know I am starting a short classics for charity book club, the whole point of which is just to draw attention to charity. So if you're going to join my free book club, it's free in 2023. Just email me at christylewisreviews@gmail.com. I'll have my email links down below with our information and schedule. And yeah, it's free, like I said, but if you are joining, I do highly encourage you to do a one-time donation for the year in lieu of a Patreon payment. I'm not doing Patreon this year, but if you want to join into the spirit of this book club, then really it's in lieu of the Patreon, just donate to your charity of your choice. Okay, let's jump into what I read for febregency and other things. Today, I actually just finished First Kings for my first part of my wrap-up today. And so the first part of First Kings is about the time in Israel's history when it was united as a nation under King Solomon, and it was a very rich, wonderful, peaceful time under King Solomon. God really blessed that reign at that time. And then after that, the rest of First Kings is about after it's split up into Israel and Judah. And so it's a very historical book. And I just love the Old Testament. Today I was reading about Ahab. I read 3 chapters about Ahab, and man, that guy was not a good guy. But God even had mercy on Ahab when he humbled himself before the Lord. And do I have hair sticking up? Oh, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with my hair today, guys. I tried to make it look nice. It's been I also wanted to mention too, I'm having some health issues, so if I go dark again on this channel, you know why. I've done a couple announcements in the community page, but I am having some autoimmune health troubles pop up again. They were more under control for a while, and so I was doing really well. I was working a lot, and that has halted because my medicine has stopped working. So we have to try and find a new one. It can take a long time to do that, so hopefully that'll happen. But in the meantime, I probably will be having a lot of pain and fatigue while we're waiting to figure it out. So if I don't post, that might be why. I was going to try and post some more edited videos. Hopefully I can do that. I do have a febregency vlog, which hopefully has come out by the time you're seeing this. And that one I got a chance to edit, although it was a very low energy vlog. Oh well. And I do plan to keep doing wrap-ups and TBRs unedited for the time being. And then hopefully other kinds of videos I'll be able to edit and publish, even if it's only like 1 or 2 a month. So, I mean, I'm looking at maybe like 2 or 3 videos a month. That would be my goal. I just don't know how busy I'm going to be with my health stuff. So, okay. Next thing. The Midnight Court. This was another thing that I read for febregency, although it was published in like 1780, I think. So it's like 15-ish years before our definition of the Regency, which is the Wikipedia definition of the Regency, which is longer than the actual Regency period. It's like 1795 to like 1825, 35, I don't know. Regardless, it's prior to that Regency period. However, it was extremely popular among the Irish. It was written in Irish by an Irishman. And so the Irish were definitely reading it during the Regency, and Ireland was part of the United Kingdom at the time, I think. Right? I'm not very good at British history. I'm not good at history in general at all, but that one I think I know. So I read The Midnight Court by Brian Merriman, and this one was translated by somebody O'Connor. I apologize. Yeah. Anyways, this was recommended in Flannery O'Connor's letters, who she is not actually related, but she was like, if anybody ever asks me if I'm related, I'm going to say I'm his mother. So he was one of the few authors writing in her generation that she actually liked his poetry. I don't know if she specifically liked this poem. This is just one that I happened to see that was available. It's a long poem, and it's pretty much about people go into the fairy court in Ireland to complain because they can't complain to the King of England. Like, he's not going to listen, you know. It's about female sexual empowerment, and it definitely didn't hit for me. I can see why it was banned when it was first translated into English in 1945 by Frank O'Connor. Frank O'Connor is the translator that I read and the translator that Flannery O'Connor really liked. It was banned, actually, at that time when it was first published in English. So I thought that was really interesting. By the Irish censor, it was banned. And so, let's see. Yeah, it was interesting because the fairy queen in this was ugly. And it just made me think, is this like a contrast to the Edmund Spenser fairy queen? Because I'm pretty sure she was not ugly. Like, wasn't she unearthly beautiful? So anyways, I thought that was interesting. It's definitely has like a very sportive tone, and it was a very bawdy poem, so I think it really fits with the Regency era in that sense. And yeah, I didn't really like it, so that's that, I guess. Yeah, like complains about marriage, down with marriage, all the problems with marriage, all the stuff. So yeah, it was like very modern for the time it was published, right? In 1780, like that was not a popular viewpoint. Down with marriage, let women sleep around. Like nobody was saying that. So that's interesting that someone in Ireland was saying that. Okay, next, I read two things by Washington Irving because Tiffany and I were trying to plan something Washington Irving to read together with her daughter for our book club, where we are going to be collaborating with her Patreon. But that's going to end up happening later in the year. We didn't end up finding one very quickly, so we'll have to do a little research. But the two that I read from Washington Irving, which were not appropriate for Claire, or maybe just not something that I thought would be interesting and useful for kids. So one of them was called The Art of Bookmaking by Washington Irving, which was interesting because the art of bookmaking is really stealing. I don't know if you ever heard of Austin Kleon, but he is a creative who wrote a book called Art is Stealing or something like that. And it's basically about how pretty much all artists are stealing from the artists they loved in the past, but by the time it becomes like a published product, it's usually nothing like the original thing that they are stealing from. It's because their own brain reshapes it into its own new unique thing. And so pretty much all writers are not very original, but once we put all our thoughts together, it becomes its own unique original thing. That's Austin Kleon's theory. Washington Irving was very annoyed with this theory. He would look on the library bookshelves and think, look at all those writers who spent all this time, you know, writing things that didn't really matter, but they just like worked so hard on them. And then there's somebody over here just like stealing it word for word out of this book. So he had some trouble. Washington Irving was obviously writing before copyright was really protected, and he had a lot of his work stolen, and it was hard for him to at first make a living off of his writing because of all the people stealing his work. So he had a reason to be really annoyed with all the art theft happening. So I thought it was interesting and funny, and I would be curious what you guys all think about copyright, because I know that's still a debate even today. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. So, and then the other thing I read by Washington Irving was The Voyage, which was a very, very short story, pretty much about that's what slaves went through. It's about the voyage between the US and Europe and how that would sort of prepare the voyager for the beauties of Europe, because the whole time that they're traveling on the ocean, it's just very monotonous. It's the same all the time, or it's like tense, like it's dangerous. He talks about all these shipwrecks that they pass, and it's like really like moving, beautiful poetry about like the grief of, you know, all the widows who were looking after these ships that have been shipwrecked. And I was just sitting there like, trying not to cry while I was reading this and thinking, wow, I think this would be a little too haunting maybe for Claire. That was my impression of it. So that's why I didn't go like, Tiffany, you know, shill this one to Claire. This should definitely be our pick. Although Tiffany, I do think you would enjoy it. It's really beautiful. So one of the quotes that I loved was, "As I heard the waves rushing along the sides of the ship and roaring in my very ear, it seemed as if death were raging around this floating prison, seeking for his prey." And I could just imagine being on a ship would be so loud, kind of like being near a fire. It's shockingly loud. You don't necessarily realize how loud fires are unless you've been close to a big one. And I can imagine that the ocean is the same if you're in a ship and it's just ocean on either side of you and it's raging. Like, I can imagine it would be louder than you would necessarily think of if you were just thinking about it and not doing it. So yeah, I loved this. Oh, and there were so many really beautiful descriptions of like ocean creatures, and like it was like before we had television like skimming the ocean and showing us all these beautiful views like of things swimming under the ocean, and before we had that kind of video footage, this book was like the next, this short story was like the next best thing. Like, it was really just a gorgeous description all the way through of the voyage between the US and Europe. And it talked about finny herds that roam its fathomless valleys, you know, the valleys down below in the ocean. Like, really, really beautiful writing. So I loved The Voyage by Washington Irving. Next, okay, finally, another febregency pick. And this is Rambler essay number 106, which I actually did a TikTok/short/reel on. And this one is really just about how, you know, modern voices, even though they can seem very important when you're reading them because they're talking about things that people are curious about today and people are debating today. Their modern writing is part of the conversation that's very current. However, every kind of generation of writers is going to be missing some things, and the next generation is going to be like, y'all were so dumb, how did you not see this? The nice thing about older voices, and this is, I think, what Samuel Johnson was writing. Oh, by the way, this was Samuel Johnson's Rambler essays. So, did I say it was number 106? So he was saying older voices, though, are kind of talking about things that are not going to fade away. And it's important to like dip into those voices and be aware of them, because those are things that people are still going to be thinking about eternally, I guess. They're more evergreen. Classics are more evergreen. So, and even the loudest voices of our generation that are most popular now will probably be forgot, most of them. Most of them will be forgotten in 100 years from now. So that's obviously in my words, but I think that was kind of what he was getting at, and I really did enjoy it. Yeah. So, okay, next, The Hobbit! Where did I put it, though? I brought the book back here, but I don't see where I put it. Whatever. So The Hobbit, I have an illustrated edition of The Hobbit, which I was reading for the Bookish Kingdom book club that Emma the Bookish Princess did last month. And I just finished it like a couple nights ago. Finally, I finished it very slowly because as soon as it became febregency, I started focusing on Evelina rather than focusing on The Hobbit, but that's okay. So I read all of it until like, maybe I read probably like the first 3/4 of it physically because I was just loving it and so engaged, and I would have kept on doing that except that I needed to focus on Evelina if I was going to get it done. So, I finished it on audiobook, and the audiobook was amazing. Who did it? It was Iron Wolf Studios, which is a YouTube channel, and it was a totally like fan-made audiobook of The Hobbit, and it was so good. I would highly recommend checking that out. I think I remember checking it out from the library one time, a Hobbit audiobook, but it was like a full cast, like everybody acting it out, like it's a radio play kind of a version. And I believe it was shorter too. So that one I didn't enjoy very much personally. I wanted to hear the actual audiobook. And so when I saw this was on YouTube, I was thrilled, and it was so good. So highly recommend. And it was just, I loved rereading this. It was so cozy, and it was like, This is something we talked about in the book club. It was characterized by this verbal trickery, which I think is more common in like English lit than in American lit. We do have like some verbal trickery in American lit, but it's mostly like one-upsmanship type stuff. Insulting, like America in general, our literature seems to be a bit more like sparse and to the point. But English literature has more fun with words. And there was just several instances with the dragon, with Bjorn, with Gollum, where Bilbo was getting by, or Gandalf or whoever was getting by on like verbal trickery. So this is following the Hobbit and like 13, 14 dwarves. I don't know. There's tons of dwarves, and a wizard, and they are going to a mountain far away, guarded with gold in it. It's like an ancient habitation of the dwarves, and it has their hoard of gold there, and there's a dragon guarding it there, and most of the book is encompassed by their journey to the dragon and to his mountain. And there's so many adventures on the way. I mean, there's like giant spiders, there's like a shape-shifting dude, there's like goblins, it is wild. There's amazing poetry in it. I love the 1977 animated film, which I grew up with, because it puts the poetry to song, and I love the songs. Like, they're very much 1970s type songs, but I'm definitely gonna go watch that because I just had the best time rereading this. So excited to continue on with that. It's totally different tone than Lord of the Rings. You know, this one is very much more like, we're following a burglar in this one, you know, whereas in Lord of the Rings, they're on this epic quest to save the universe for the sake of good versus evil. And The Hobbit is really not like that. It's just mostly an adventure story about getting some gold. Bilbo is a burglar. That's what he does. So pretty fun. I really adored this, and I might go back and finish physically reading it because I'm gonna, and I definitely want to read The Lord of the Rings again this year. I don't know if I'll finish them, but I want to go back and start rereading them because I just also got the Blu-rays, and I'm loving watching those right now with my mom. I'm hopefully gonna watch them with some friends as well at some point. But right now, my mom and I are watching them together because I just got them for Christmas. And I'm going to need to relax a lot with my health problems right now. It's very important. Oh, I found the book. It's down. Well, I'm not going to get it right now. Anyways, yeah, I'm going to need some serious downtime here. I need to really relax. So, okay, next, The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which is book 2 in the young adult kind of adventure puzzle-y series, modern day. It's about a girl who is randomly becomes the heir to a giant mansion and all the money that goes along with it, the fortune that goes along with it, the Hawthorne fortune. But she's really baffled. Everybody's really baffled why she became the heir, because she is not related to this family at all, and there are other people in line who you think would have had some access to the money, to the fortune here. And so she has to move into the Hawthorne mansion for a year in order to have the money. So we're in book 3 and the year is not over yet. And there's just constant puzzles happening that she has to solve in order to find the truth of who she is to these people and various other things. There's just tons of puzzles and clues left behind by the people who put her in this situation, who all have supposedly died, you know, and left her this situation and this fortune. So Kevin is really loving this. We're listening to this on my doctor visits, basically. And so we've been through book 1 and 2, and we are now, I don't know how many hours into book 3. We're like 40% into book 3 or something. And the beginning was really not our thing at all, but it's definitely picking up now. So I think the second book was Kevin's favorite so far. So, and I'm still like totally bored, not caring about it at all, but happy that he's enjoying it. So yeah, it's really not my kind of thing at all. It's very plot driven. Like the writing is not beautiful. It's just there to get the story across, basically. And it's not like there's no characterization. It's just not really, it's really boring characterization to me. So anyways, next, I actually DNF'd, and I mentioned this last month, but then I didn't have my notes. So here we go. The history of the captivity and sufferings of Mrs. Maria Martin, who was 6 years a slave in Algiers, 2 of which she was confined in a dismal dungeon loaded with irons by the command of an inhuman Turkish officer, written by herself, to which is added a concise history of Algiers with the manners and customs of the people. So I DNF'd this one at 24% because honestly, she was spending so much time on this concise history of Algiers, supposedly, and just giving her own very colored views of life there. And I just was like, when are we gonna get to, like, your story? Like, maybe her story would be worth it, but definitely the history of Algiers was not my thing at all. Like, so for example, she would make generalizations like the Moors or Arabs, for the two names appear to be synonymous, are good horsemen, but great thieves. Like, they're all thieves? Like, I don't know. It was interesting to hear certain things that she noticed, like that their principal arms were short lances and scimitars, and that they were often acquainted with the bow and the musket. So there was some stuff of interest in there, but I just was like, hopefully there's some better Regency era memoirs out there, because I want to read them, but this one was not it. So yeah, I definitely want to look out for some more Regency memoirs maybe next year. I am enjoying some other Regency nonfiction for the time being. So that is all that I have finished. I won't talk about what I'm in the middle of yet, because that would just take me forever if I did that every month. So yeah, I'll talk to you soon, okay? Bye. Okay guys, it's February 13th, so I'm back with a few more things that I have read. And I also wanted to announce I finally chose the book that I want to read for our March book club pick for the short classics for charity book club. We're going to read The Silver Chair by C.S. Lewis. So if you want to read and discuss that, it's very middle grade March appropriate. Definitely email me at christylewisreviews@gmail.com, and I will add you to the Zoom list. We have Zoom discussions for each of the books. And yeah, let me know. Please join us. It's going to be a blast. So, okay, so I'm also going to add some K-dramas in here that I finished. And actually one of them I finished both of them I finished last month, but I just realized I'm probably not going to get around to reviewing these in a long form. So I'm just going to mention them here because they are stories that I'm enjoying, even if they're not books. So anyways, okay, so Tale of the Nine-Tailed is a K-drama that was actually a rewatch for me. I watched this with Tiffany from Beautiful Minutia, and we watched this on Zoom together, and I cannot even recommend that enough. Like, it was so fun. I felt like it was such a treat to hang out with Tiffany all the time. Every week we were watching it mostly. We had a couple weeks off, but it was such a blast to watch this with her. So this is it's a K-drama about a woman who is a producer. She became a producer because her parents went missing when she was a child. They were as a family in a car accident, and it was very traumatic. And what she remembers is being attacked by some imposters of her parents after her parents disappeared. So her parents disappear, and then suddenly she's back with her parents, it seems like, but then she realizes that these aren't her parents. Like, they don't know, for example, that she has a deathly nut allergy, and so she tests them and finds out that they're not her parents, and they like try to attack her, and she's like very young, at this time. So it's very like horror-esque opening, and I think that probably scares away some people, some readers, but really it's a fantasy romance with like horror elements is really the genre of this, and a strong mystery plot for especially like the first half. There's a very strong mystery plot. And so the mystery plot is what happened to this little girl's parents. So now she's an adult, she's a producer, she basically studies supernatural phenomena in Korea. And she's doing that because she knows there was something supernatural about the way her parents disappeared. So I don't want to get into any spoilers, but there also is a character who is what's called a nine-tailed fox from Korean mythology. There's all kinds of Korean mythology things in this K-drama. It brings them all to life in such interesting ways. It's like kind of gritty, urban in a way, but yeah, really great. So the nine-tailed fox is one of the main characters, and he is also on his own journey. He's very interested in this producer woman, and you don't find out right away why that is, so I won't spoil it for you. But my favorite K-drama series, the first K-drama I finished. I've never watched one that exceeded it in my mind, but you know, I think your first K-drama is always going to be kind of a formative experience for you, and it's probably going to be your favorite for a long time, if not forever. That was certainly the case for me. That's been the case for Tiffany and her husband as well. So, but this one also was one of Jenny's favorite K-dramas ever, and it wasn't her first. So I think that speaks to how good it is. The opponent or antagonist or villain of this drama is one of the major drawing points, I think, for people who are watching this. He's very you can't stop watching him, we'll put it like that. He's like a very, very good actor, but also just his character, it's interesting watching him unravel and grow as a person. So fascinating. So anyways, yeah, my favorite K-drama, rewatched that and had the best time rewatching that. I've rewatched like half of it in Korean. No, not half of it. Like a quarter of it in Korean. And I'm going to continue doing that hopefully soon at some point. But I haven't been watching as much at night because I've been sleeping better. Yay, so that's actually a good thing. Okay, next K-drama that I finished was Reborn Rich. And this is actually in Korean, 제발 집 막내 아들. So what that means is 제발, I'm sorry, my pronunciation. 제발 is basically a family that has become rich through their corporation, and they are kind of like celebrities in Korea, but it's like a pejorative term. So people follow them obsessively because they're celebrities, but also are kind of jealous of them, and also I don't really understand the full cultural significance of J.R.R, but I've learned about it in the Korean history book as well. A lot of them, like Samsung and Hyundai. I'm sorry, I forget what the Hangul is for those. Hangul is the Korean alphabet. I just know the Romanizations and how those are. I'm sure nobody pronounces those right. Romanization is not the way to go if you're trying to learn Korean. Anyways, so Hyundai, Samsung, and there's others that are J.R.R. So those are basically corporations that in their early days, they received some help from the government because in like I think it was the 60s when this happened, there was like really rapid industrialization happening in South Korea. It happened a little earlier in North Korea because their centralized government was stronger there, and they also had the benefit of a lot of natural resources. But eventually South Korea also did the same thing. And yeah, so these corporations were already well performing. They performed very well, and so the government decided to grow them and give them money. So I found the history of J.R.R. corporations very, very fascinating. But this is following a J.R.R. family early on, in like nowadays. It's like contemporary kind of. Part of it is in the contemporary, and part of it is like 30 or 40 years before that. So I don't know when the backstory of this K-drama is set, but there is quite a bit of backstory in Reborn Rich because you're following the development of a family, a J.R.R. Corporation, pretty much starting from one grandfather character who started the corporation. You're not following it from his youth. You're following it from the point of where there is a war of secession, where all of his family and grandsons are like arguing about who is going to be the one to take over this corporation, Sunyang. and Sunyang is the corporation. And so the whole family is fighting about it, and we're really following one character in particular who is the youngest grandson and therefore has no shot of owning the corporation. And pretty much he is actually not the youngest grandson. He's actually somebody who was killed in the modern day timeline and was put into the body of this grandson. And you don't find out why until the very end, but it's got like cosmic consequences basically for him and for the family and for Sunyang. So yeah, I loved the ending. The last episode was my favorite episode. I really loved the main character. He's the main character of Vincenzo, which is one of Jenny's favorites. And we were watching Reborn right at the same time. And she stopped watching it because the plot was a little bit hard to follow because you're trying to follow this youngest grandson, supposedly. Maknae Adar is youngest grandson. Maknae is what they call the youngest of any group. So idol group or family, Maknae. And then Adar is son. And Tebal Chip, so Chip is house. So it's Tebal house, grandson, youngest grandson. So basically, the translation would be youngest grandson of a Chebar house. Chebar, bar. I'm sorry, I have trouble differentiating between the ah and the aw vowels. To me, they're like so ah, aw. I don't know. I have trouble differentiating those. But anyways, I really enjoyed this K-drama, especially the last episode. There was a lot of complaints about the ending, but I don't have any complaints. I loved it. So at some point I would love to actually read the web novel, but I don't think it's free. So I would have to pay for the web novel. And as you know, I'm a cheapskate who only uses the library or Project Gutenberg. So the next thing that I finished was Talk to Me in Korean Level 2. I'm done with Level 2. This took me a long time to finish because this had 30 lessons in it. And I definitely think these were harder. And also I was using their website because I didn't buy the grammar book. I decided to try using the website's free lesson plans. And the website is amazing. And I can't believe that all of that is free, but it does take a lot longer to learn because you can't just go through and highlight the things you want to remember. You have to write everything down if you want to remember it. For me personally, I have to. So it took me a lot longer to do level 2 without the grammar book. So thank you, Victoria, for buying me the level 3 grammar book because that will definitely help me go faster. So there were 5 more lessons, I think, in this one than the original level 1. But anyways, I'm starting level 3 now. I've started listening to the podcast and soaking myself in the new grammar and 많이 공부하고 있어요. 파이팅! I was gonna say that, but switching from English and Korean, that's hard. So I said I'm studying a lot, and for anybody else who is studying, fighting! Or keep going, keep working on it. I know Tiffany's studying with me. So I finished all the lessons and the level 2 workbook. I'm done with level 2. So, okay, I also read the Rambler essay number 2, and I totally forgot to write down the title of the Rambler essay. Very smooth, Christy, very smooth. I don't know if I wrote it down here. Let me check. The necessity and danger of looking into futurity. So it's really about, I read number 1 too, but that was basically an introduction of his plans for the Rambler. And then number 2 was talking about how basically it's important for us as humans to look forward to things in the future because that can help us stay focused and excited about our goals and everything. But there's also a danger that you will lose yourself in dreaming and daydreaming when what you really need to be doing is working hard, or you're going to miss the opportunities that you need in order to get where you're trying to go. So yeah, I thought it was really good. I loved this one quote though. It frequently happens that by indulging early the raptures of success, we forget the measures necessary to secure it and suffer the imagination to riot in the fruition of some possible good, till the time of obtaining it has slipped away. So I posted quotes on Instagram, and I think also on my community page. So you can check out the quotes there if you're interested. And so I this morning was like listening to it and reading it at the same time, trying to get the most out of it. And it was really good. So I really enjoyed that. I'm probably going to try to read maybe one more Rambler essay this month. We'll see what happens. Or maybe one a week. We'll see what happens. I also read Idle Burning by Usami, which was recommended to me by a wonderful subscriber, Tony. Thank you so much, Tony. This book was so good. And I'd never even heard of it, but it was an international bestseller and winner of the 2020 Akutagawa Prize. Akutagawa Prize. I don't know how you pronounce Japanese things, especially with romanization. Who even knows? But I don't know any of their 3 alphabets, so forgive the mispronunciation, please. But regardless, I think this was written by quite a young woman. Like, I think she was still maybe a teenager when she wrote this. But it was really good. So it's really about fandom and how publicly burning people is different from just like legitimately criticizing them. And it's about a fan of a Japanese idol, which is a Japanese singer who is also like a fashion model, and like idols in Korean and I think also in Korea and also in Japan, I think, are multiple things. They're not just singers. They're also dancers and composers and, you know, many things. Some of them are rappers. They're pretty much all supposed to be style icons. And yeah, so anyways, there's a lot of weight on an idol's shoulders, let's say. Anyways, this girl is following her favorite idol when he commits some kind of misconduct. I believe he hits a fan or something. And so obviously everybody who's been idolizing him, a lot of them just turn on him. And there's all this anti-negative talk online about him as a result of his behavior. And he gets basically canceled. But it's kind of a very virulent form of canceling, and with huge consequences for his career and everything, and also for his fans. The main character of this story is very invested in him, and in following him, it's like her life is based around him. And so we're pretty much following this journey from her perspective and how it's affecting her. And it was really wonderful. And I loved it. Loved this. I don't know if this is considered YA, but it felt like so realistic. The way it was describing like the live stream commenters and the online hate when somebody gets canceled. And like, it was so accurate. And I think the translator was particularly good for this one. So I actually listened to it, but I want to go back and read it at some point because I loved this. There was a lot of commentary in there, but not like political commentary. It was just like commentary on life and society. So really loved it. I thought it was amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Tony, for recommending it. I loved it. So that is all that I finished so far, and I'm sure I'll have finished more by the end of the month. It's going to be a long wrap-up. Holy moly. Hi there, guys. It's now February 25th, and I'm very excited to tell you I did finish The Vicar of Wakefield, and it was a 100% book. Like, I had absolutely no complaints. It was just wonderful. So this is a book about a vicar and his family who are wealthy, and then they lose their money basically, and it's really about how life becomes very complex for them after that point, and it's very sympathetic to the poor. I think the author probably experienced some poverty, and I of course had to go back and start listening to Ian Mortimer's book, The Time Traveler's Guide to Regency Britain again, and I'm like suddenly way more interested in that because I loved The Vicar of Wakefield so much, and he talks about like prison reforms and, you know, some of the difficulties of living in poverty in Regency Britain. Obviously it wasn't Regency Britain quite yet when The Vicar of Wakefield was published, but it was very close, and they were experiencing very rapid population growth and all the difficulties that come along with that, feeding everyone. So yeah, I absolutely adored this book. And that's a strong word, but it is one of my favorite books of 2023, definitely, along with Wise Blood and Lamentations. I forget if I talked about Lamentations yet in an earlier clip, but that was really stunning to read that with my Bible study. So yeah, I'm having a great reading year so far. I already have 3 favorite books and it's only February. So yeah, highly recommend The Vicar of Wakefield. I cannot recommend it enough. It was so fabulous. So I do have a review hopefully coming out. Hopefully you've seen it by now, but I'm not sure. Anyways, so I guess all that's really left is, oh, and I'm like, what, 96% of the way through Evelina. And, you know, I think it's probably like a 2.5, 3-star type book. I'm giving it like maybe a 65%. I am enjoying the ending, and most of it I found was enjoyable to listen to some degree, but there was a lot of really tedious periods too, where I was mostly like really tired of the characters, and it was a lot of the kind of same situations happening over and over and over again. You know, pretty much Evelina would just run away from any situation. Like, it's about a girl's entrance into society, and I understand if you're like, have a lot of social anxiety, that's very difficult. It's very angsty. Anytime she runs into a problem, she just runs away from it. She doesn't try to deal with it. And she's very kind of snobby in a lot of ways, in my opinion. And that's probably a little bit too harsh. She was raised that way. But, yeah, she's trying to be a delicate young woman in society that is not delicate, basically. So it's, maybe snobby is the wrong word. But yeah, it was just really cringy most of the time, most of the way through. I did really enjoy portions of it though. Like, I think somewhere around the midpoint, I was really enjoying it. The beginning I was interested, and then shortly thereafter not interested for like 20 or 30%. And then I was interested somewhere in the middle, because things changed and there were some humorous episodes that were actually funny, you know. A lot of it was supposed to be funny, and to me it was not funny, it was just mostly tedious. So, but I am glad that I am finishing it, because I was really excited about our discussion at the end of the month. That was mainly why I was finishing it. I was like, oh, I want to do the discussion. I want to be there and present for the discussion, and I want to have things to say. So I didn't DNF it, despite my better judgment telling me that I should, and it didn't send me into a reading slump because I was able to just listen to it and do just fine. And I actually had a great reading month. I read so much, as you can probably tell by the length of this video, and I read a lot that I didn't even finish that I'll probably finish in later months. So I had one book that I'm loving so much. I'm loving it so much. I'm listening to interviews by the author, like all of them, and I can't wait to talk about it, but I haven't finished it yet. It had to go back to the library because it's really popular right now, and it's a nonfiction book, and I'm taking copious notes. And that book, maybe I'll just mention it. It's The Case Against the Sexual Revolution by Louise Perry. So good, guys. Flawed, but very, very thought-provoking. I'm loving it. So anyways, I don't normally mention current reads because it can take me months to finish a book if I do, and sometimes I just don't. So, but that one I'm really excited to get back. And I spent a lot of time reading that, you know, because I was slowly savoring The Vicar of Wakefield. Every word I savored of that book. I was just loving it. But I didn't want to rush through it. So, yeah, and it did take a lot of effort and focus for me to read The Vicar of Wakefield, because it's not a very plot-heavy book. So even though it's short, it took me all month to read. So anyways, okay, I guess all that's left is my TBR, which I posted my middle grade March TBR already. And like, I have my time quintet sitting here, like, for something else that I filmed, which you will see on Krista's channel coming up here in March. So yeah, I am just all over the place. I want to read all the things, but I've started The Silver Chair, and that's going to be my priority middle grade read. As soon as I finish The Silver Chair, that's my bedtime read right now, I will probably switch to a Rover story by Jasmine Warga, because I really want to read that for the group pick because it's sci-fi and I just get such cravings for sci-fi. It's been a long time since I've really given into them because I was in such a classics mood, and then I've been trying to do nonfiction and all my buddy reads, trying to keep up with them, but I'm also reading Empire of the Ants, and this is also going to be a big focus next month. Nothing to do with Middle Grade March or Lent, but so there's usually 3 times a day that I potentially read. One is in the morning if I have really good focus. Of course I read my 4 times that I read. I read my Bible first, and if I have time after that, and I usually do for like an hour to an hour and a half, something like that, I will read either my Korean history or the Cloud of Unknowing or like another spiritual book that requires a lot of focus. So that's going to be the time when I'm reading the Cloud of Unknowing for Lent, which has been very slow going. The language is extremely difficult. But so that's on my TBR, obviously, Cloud of Unknowing. And then this is what I'm going to be reading if I have time to read after doing my Korean, after dinner, before my bedtime reading. And that's because this doesn't have an audiobook. Otherwise, I would probably just make it my bedtime reading. But it's slow going because, like I said, there is no audiobook. But I don't want to tell you what this is for yet. But it's very interesting. It's about, it's basically about ants. And it's like supposed to be like Watership Down for the ant kingdoms. So yeah, I love it. I love it. It's so good. So far. Really enjoying it. And then the other thing that is very high on my TBR, which actually I might even start this and try to finish it before I get back to Empire of the Ants, is Yeonmi Park's new book. Yay! Yeonmi Park's first book was one of my best books of 2022. So when I saw that she was coming out with this, instantly ordered it for my library. And I got it today. Kevin brought it home today. So that's going to be high on my TBR. So my priorities are going to be A Silver Chair, A Cloud of Unknowing, While Time Remains by Yeonmi Park, and did I mention A Rover Story by Jasmine Warga? There's tons of other things that I could read, but I'm not going to mention them all because I don't want to overwhelm myself. So anyways, those are my plans. Let me know down below what you really enjoyed this month or what you're planning to read next month. Talk to you guys soon.